Why is a sculpture of Joan of Arc here?
Well, there are two reasons. Cardinal Beaufort's over there. I think with the Tron, that's what it said. But also, the Lady Chapel here is used for Catholic services. That was his one miracle. Not exactly earth-shattering, but that was it. Go left, you've got the Virgin Mary. Go left again, you've got a bishop holding a bridge.
Okay.
That's Swithin.
St Swithin was an Anglo-Saxon bishop. He was born in Winchester around the year 800. From 852 to his death in 863, he was the 19th bishop to Winchester. Before becoming a bishop, he was counsellor to the Saxon kings Egbert and Ethelwulf. It is believed St Swithin was tutor to King Alfred the Great. When becoming a saint, his body was moved to the cathedral on July the 15th, 971, where a great storm occurred. July the 15th is now known as St Swithin's Day or Feast Day. St Swithin's main part of his body rests in the cathedral today, but when shrines of him were placed in other religious buildings, they all wanted a part of his body, which included a shrine at Peterborough Cathedral and his head, which is believed to be moved to Canterbury Cathedral. And now, according to tradition, if it rains on St Swithin's Bridge in Winchester on his feast day, it will continue to rain for 40 days, with 40 days of fair weather afterwards. The poem by John Gay in 1716 states, St Swithin's Day, if thou dost rain, for 40 days it will remain. St Swithin's Day, if that be fair, for 40 days 'twill rain nay mere. So this is Samuel Wilberforce, Bishop of Winchester between 1800 and 1873.
This is a copy of a report that was sent to Cromwell after the destruction of St Swithin, and they were boasting about how much silver and jewels they got off it.
So this is the reconstructed shrine of St Swithin. So this is William Walker, who saved the cathedral due to the cathedral sinking. Okay, we're inside Winchester Cathedral and we are by the shrine of St Swithin, and that's the first part of our walk. So the next 34 miles we will walk in the St Swithin Way. So obviously the mask is a sign of the times. Let's get outside the cathedral and let's start the Pilgrim's Way. Well, today we start the Pilgrim's Way. It will be a trek across the southern England. It's 153 miles, actually starting here at Winchester Cathedral, the ancient capital of England. And we're going to head towards Canterbury Cathedral, and along the way we're going to first do the St Swithin's Way, which is 34 miles to Farnham. Then from Farnham we will continue along the Pilgrim's Way, but alongside the Pilgrim's Way is the North Downs Way. So certain parts we will walk in on the North Downs Way and the rest of it will be the Pilgrim's Way. I'm going to try and keep to the old paths of the Pilgrim's Way until we get to Canterbury. Then from Canterbury we'll walk the 17 miles to Dover, which is the next part of the pilgrimage, which would continue to Rome. Now the North Downs Way is quite well marked, where the Pilgrim's Way is not so well marked, but we're going to try and follow it to the book that I have, the Pilgrim's Way book, and we'll head to Canterbury and Canterbury Cathedral. Now before we start the trail we should head north, but instead we are going to head south and we're going to head to the Hospital of St Cross and we're going to collect the Wayfarer's Dole. So we're arriving at the Hospital of St Cross. Now hopefully the porter's lodge is open. Can I have the dog?
You can. We're all ready for you.
Thank you very much.
So, beer, bread.
Beer and a morsel of bread. Well, that looks quite a big morsel.
It's not as big as what you used to get.
Is it?
You used to get a day's supply, but
close the Potter Gate.
Oh, thanks, Ian. Yeah. Yeah, no, you used to get a day's supply because that's what pilgrims want. White bread, that's the best.
Oh, yes.
Thank you. So we're leaving Porter's Lodge and heading out of St Cross now. I'm going to head back into Winchester and past the cathedral, and from there we'll continue on the St Swithin's Way and the Pilgrim's Way to Canterbury, and then we'll finish in Dover. So when I went to the Porter's Lodge and got the Wayfarer's Dole, I got my beer and there was a morsel of bread. It was a little bit bigger than I thought. Now the porter, the lady, said to me that you used to have a day's rations and a beer, like a porcelain mug with no handle. When I drank it, I'm not sure if it was meant to be in there, but when you go for Holy Communion, you have the bread and wine, which is that like little disc, like rice paper. I think that was in the bottom of it. So I'm not sure if it was meant to be in it or not. I almost choked when I swallowed that bit with the beer. And funny enough, the lady, the porter, her husband was in the armed forces. She used to be based in Tidworth, and we got chatting. Actually, she was based there when I was there, back in between 1992 and 95. Small old world it is, small old world. This is a bronze of William Walker, the diver, who held the cathedral together as he spent his years underneath the cathedral, propping it up with cement and concrete. Since then, the cathedral has stood proud, and other well-known names have come to be buried in the cathedral, including Jane Austen in 1817, aged 41. The 1800s famous novelist, where we will come across her home and other places associated to her life and books along this long-distance footpath to Canterbury. So we're heading out of the city of Winchester. We're heading toward Hyde Abbey now. Now it is a bit quieter here. It was a bit noisy outside the cathedral. Obviously a lot of people there. Nice sunny day, everybody on the grass, sitting down, having the picnics. When we get to Hyde Abbey, we'll be on the city boundary. So I'll tell you a little bit about Hyde Abbey once we arrive there. Although the abbey dates back to 1110 and was a Benedictine monastery originally, Hyde Abbey was rebuilt outside the city walls in the 15th century, made of flint and stone. Afterwards it was called the New Minster, after the old minster was demolished in 1093. Henry I ordered that the bodies of King Alfred the Great, his wife and son Edward the Elder were moved to Hyde Abbey by the way of a state parade and buried by the high altar. Their royal bodies became a place for pilgrims to visit, and still to this day, like myself, as I am a pilgrim. King Alfred the Great was king of the West Saxons and then the Anglo-Saxons. The king suffered with illness throughout his life, believed to be what we now know as Crohn's disease. As king, he was famous for fighting Viking invasions. After the victory in the Battle of Edington in 878, he made an agreement with the Vikings that he was king of Wessex and the south-west of England, and the Vikings ruled the north-east of England, which is known as the Danelaw. Eventually, Alfred brought both kingdoms together, forming what is now known as England. Alfred encouraged education, and it was spoken in Old English rather than Latin, following from the Romans, allowing more people in England to understand written books. He didn't receive the title of Great until the 16th century, after being recognised as the founder of United England as one. Not much remains today of the abbey, just an entranceway with Hyde Gate and a church which was built for lay brothers and passing pilgrims. We have found a signpost, so we are on St Swithin's Way. Let's carry on with the route. We're aiming for Kingsworthy next. So today we're aiming to do about 16.5 miles. So as I started, we went to south a little bit off the track. We went to Hospital St Cross, where we got the Wayfarer's Dole and like a blessing. You used to get a day's rations, so like a loaf of bread for pilgrims to continue their route, and those were needy travellers. But the thing is, when I was drinking the mug of beer, I think there was a wafer in the bottom route, and just chugged the last bit down, and then this all of a sudden like felt like a piece of paper with a rounded shape, went straight down my throat. Almost choked on it, so I near enough didn't start the walk, nearly enough ended up in hospital. But fortunately we passed that little task. Hopefully that's the hardest part of the journey, other than the 170 miles. So we'll keep going now. Today we're aiming to get to a place called Ropley Green, and we're going to the Watercress Line, which is a railway station, a heritage railway station, and there's a campsite by the side of it. There's a couple of campsites we're staying on, and there's also a few wild camps as well. Tomorrow I'm going to be staying in a place called Monk's Wood, or hoped to be, as again couldn't find many campsites, so there might be a bit of a problem on the route is finding places to sleep, especially places like Guildford, which will be built up. We're not going to be finding places to sleep there, so it could be extra miles in per day to find a suitable spot to camp. Want to get from A to B, and I don't want to be traipsing 4 miles to a campsite that's off the route. I want to stick to the route as much as possible. So as I mentioned, we're heading to Ropley Green. Before that we're going to Kingsworthy, then to Alresford. Looking down towards Nun Stream. It's the stream we're following at the moment. The water in it is crystal clear. We're going to continue this way. So we're heading towards Chalk Pit Cottage Farm now. We're going to continue on the path, follow the Nun Stream towards Kingsworthy. Passport is a document to record a pilgrim's journey as he or she progresses along the ancient path. As there are numerous locations along the route where you can have your passport stamped as you head from Winchester to Canterbury. The passport costs £2 and can be purchased either from Winchester, Southwark or Rochester cathedrals. Once arriving at Canterbury with a passport, you can gain free entry into the final location of the cathedral. Slightly eerie tunnel, lots of eyes looking at you. Aye aye. Is it Google? Are they Googling at me? I believe this used to be a pub at one point, Tavern Cottage. Well, that's a bit weird. Boot open, stuff over there, all lying around, nobody here. There's a car behind us, exactly the same. We're just walking up Mill Lane at the moment with several picturesque thatched cottages. It is more than 1,000 years old and is referred to in the Saxon Charter of AD 901 as Mainland Villages. The properties on the right hand side once belonged to the Worthy Park estate, while those on the left were owned by the Beering family. This is the River Itchen. It stretches for 26 miles. It starts at New Alresford, which we'll be heading to later today, and it heads down to Southampton, which is that away. But we're heading this away. And the way I'm walking at the moment, as I mentioned, we're going to Canterbury eventually, which will probably be there in about 8 days. Then we're going to head down to Dover, which is an extension, because from one pilgrimage there's another. So you can go from Canterbury all the way to Rome. The first leg of that is to Dover. So that's the last bit I'll be doing, and we'll be finishing off somewhere near Dover Castle. Maybe another year We'll probably do across France and Italy down to Rome. That'll be the ultimate one. I'm not sure how far that would be. Probably 1,000 miles. This one being only a nice easy 170. To our left is Worthy Park House and Estate, a fine building of white stone. The house was originally built in 1722, but was demolished and rebuilt in 1820. Designed by the architect Sir Robert Smart for Sir Charles Ogle, 2nd Baronet and Admiral of the Fleet of the Royal Navy. The house overlooks the Itchen Valley. In 1825, Sir Charles sold the house to Samuel Waugh from Worcester. He and his family continued to live in the property until the end of the last century, when the building was taken over by the Princemead School, a private prep school from reception to year 6. So the River Itchen on our right hand side and the M3 motorway above us. We're heading towards Martyr Worthy now. This is the Church of St Swithin. The church dates back to the 12th century. The brooch spire at the Barn Church in Kew Gardens is modelled on the Church of St Swithin's. So I've just noticed the writing around the archway is the 10 Commandments. The priory behind the church is that of Martyr Worthy Manor, built in 1790. A Queen Anne home that was both a rectory and a manor house. It is known as the Squierson. 2 wings were added to the property in the 1800s and belonged to the rector Sir Henry Rivers, and is now on the market. So for a grand house with 8 bedrooms, 36 acres of land, it comes at a grand price of £6.25 million. So most of the hamlet of Martyr Worthy is residential, with several character cottages along the streets. Most date back to the 16th and 17th century. Timber framed with brick or wattle and daub infill. Place name Martyr Worthy is first attested in the Episcopal Registers of 1243. It appears as Werder the Martyr. Well, they all look like miniature sheep. Must be a special breed. They can't be all lambs. Just amongst the trees, the other side of the river, we've got Avington Park. Just the rooftops at the moment. Hopefully we'll get a clearer view later. Abundance of flint on the ground. That's why some of the buildings are built of flint. It's quite easy along the floor. I've tripped over a couple of pieces of it already. Itchen Abbas is mentioned in the Hampshire folk song Avington Pond as the place where the builders of the pond were paid their wages. They were given their money in the Plough public house. The church is that of St John the Baptist, built during the Norman period between 1066 and 1154. The doorway and chancel arch are both original, but the rest of the church has been rebuilt by William Coles in 1867. Charles Kingsley was a regular visitor to the village, where the village and the river gave him inspiration when writing the novel The Water Babies in 1863. The yew tree in front is believed to be over 1,000 years old. And here is the grave of John Hughes, last person in England to be hanged for stealing horses in 1825. The rector Robert Wright paid for him to be buried in Itchen Abbas churchyard. So we're just passing Avington Lodge, and to our left is Avington main gates to Avington Park. Now this is probably about the closest view we're going to get from the St Swithin's Way. The estate dates back to 961 and was granted to the Bishop of Winchester by King Edgar. It was originally used as a priory for the monks of St Swithin, well, until Henry VIII decided to take the estate for the Tudors and the royal courtiers, and continued to be enjoyed by the royal court for over 300 years. King Charles II in 1660, on return to England, having been exiled to France, lived at Avington for over 10 years with his mistress, Nell Gwynn, the actress. Afterwards, it continued to be used by the Dukes of Chandos. Come 1847, Sir John Shelley purchased the property. His wife, Lady Eleanor Shelley Rolls, was the heiress to the Rolls-Royce fortune. She divided the estate up and sold it to Lieutenant Colonel Hickson in 1951. Since then, it continued to be owned by the Hicksons, now used for weddings and the corporate events, as well as the odd film location. Well, how are we all doing? Well, I'm actually not doing as well as I expected. Problem being is that this morning we set off a little bit later than planned. I stayed at a campsite just outside of Winchester last night so we can get in and start early, but then I found out the cathedral doesn't open till 10 a.m. As I wanted to start from the shrine of St Swithin, I had to wait till obviously the cathedral was open. We will have to get a bit of a shifty on. So the next place we're going to is Arlesfield. We're just passing through Old Stoke and Ovington. It's just a little hamlet of a few houses, and we're just continuing along this quiet country road. We continue for about another kilometre and a half, and that will get us towards Alresford. Still, the water is so clear around here. You can see the fish in there. You can see two fish, one either side of the stream. This is called Stoke Itchen Mill, just slightly off our path, but we'll let you have a quick glimpse of it. Very picturesque. These mounds in the water are watercress, which we'll talk about a little bit once we get to the watercress meadows. Well, there's a bit of a ford here. I won't be dipping my feet. Actually, it's a bit deeper than I thought it was. It's actually deeper than the river in most of the places. It's probably 2.5 feet deep, but still clear, perfectly clear. Just speaking to a gentleman with his dog, and he was saying that it's the chalk sediment that's in this area, and that's the reason why the water's so clear. So the area that we're walking through now is the water meadows, and in particular the watercress, because Alresford is actually very famous for watercress. There's loads of water beds all around Alresford. Now, as I've been told, that's how you pronounce it, Alresford. I think you missed the L out. So the watercress meadows have been growing here for centuries and is believed to be the watercress capital. Flat, chalky conditions is the perfect ground for the plant to thrive. With the flowing spring water and gravel beds make it ideal for growing. The plant has been used as a garnish for years, but now found out it is a superfood and has increased in popularity. We're now walking through the market town of New Alresford. There is evidence of a settlement existing here since the Neolithic times, then through to the Romans and beyond. A religious order and building has also been here since before the 9th century. The stone bridge dates back to the 12th century, and the Great Weir between New and Old Alresford were built for the Bishop of Winchester. The town expanded over the years, becoming a market town and focusing on wool, leather and cattle. It became one of the biggest market towns in England by the 14th century. In 1689, a great fire went through the town, burning 2/3 of the timber frame buildings. Afterwards, the buildings were rebuilt, and today we can see most buildings are Georgian and Victorian. We head towards our next place, which is Bishop Sutton. Bishop Sutton was originally mentioned as Sudtone in the Domesday Book of 1068. The brother to Stephen, King of England in the 12th century, was also the Bishop of Winchester. He set up 6 towns in the area, including Alresford that we passed through earlier. Each town became prosperous for the bishop. The bishop's grand palace was here in Bishop Sutton. Near to here, by the river Itchen, the bishop had a canal system built, which is believed to be one of the oldest canals in England. So we've just arrived at the campsite, which is I think it's called the Water Meadows Line campsite, because the Water Meadows Line train station is just behind those bushes. Anyway, it's a heritage line. I'll talk about that later tomorrow. Got the tent up. Well, we've got the inner and the frame up, so just need to get the fly on. Let's be quite honest, I'm a bit tired. I'll sleep well tonight. Well, that's day one complete of the Pilgrim's Way. Started at Winchester and we just finished at Ropley, next to the Watercress line. So today we did 27 kilometres. So hopefully you'd like to join me for day 2, which will be coming out next week. Until then, stay safe, look after yourselves, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye, hikers.